A lot has happened to Bitcoin's price since yesterday, as this head and shoulder pattern is currently forming the right shoulder, but we're currently breaking out of the symmetrical triangle. I want to talk about what's happening to Bitcoin and if this head and shoulder is going to play out or not, because as you can see with price action right now, we're heading toward this major resistance at 36,500, where we previously double bottomed in Bitcoin's price when we first breached that $40,000 level and we saw a pullback. And I want to also talk about the possible downside targets, but most importantly, altcoin season is here. Let's talk about some altcoin trades that we're taking. We actually took this BTC trade here, Polkadot, which already saw 25% profits. I'll talk about some of our other altcoin trades and which altcoins we're specifically watching and how to play this new altcoin season. This is Naeem Alabadi. You're watching the Snipers channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you appreciate this content, please like this video. It truly helps our channel, and make sure to subscribe if you guys have yet to subscribe to our channel. But first, let's talk about what's happening to Bitcoin's price, and then we'll go into some altcoins and then talk about altcoin season and how to properly handle this season. And so as you can see here, we've got this right shoulder currently forming, and so far we've broken out of the symmetrical triangle and heading towards that $36,500 level. Now, of course, the head and shoulder pattern is going to take some time to actually form, and at this point we have to realize that Bitcoin is still in a very macro bullish trend, and there's still a high chance that we could still continue to the upside and invalidate this head and shoulder pattern, because we do have some very bullish divergence here. When we look at the RSI, you can see we have this higher low that formed in price action, while the RSI is forming this lower low, and that is a very bullish divergence that could most likely take us to new highs, or if not, retest the previous all-time high. However, the price action with market structure is also forming a head and shoulder pattern, so things are 50-50. I'm not surprised. The institutions and the whales love to do this to traders, but that's why you have to understand what's happening in price action. And exactly, if we look at this 1 hour chart, what we're waiting for at this point is a break above 36,500, because that's going to take us towards this weekly open. And yesterday I talked about 38,000 being that breakout level, but at this point, if we start to close hourly candles above 36,500, then I think there's a high chance we may even come up and break out of this channel. Now, so far, we've yet to see massive volume come in. We're only seeing a little bit of buy volume, but that is enough to take us out of the symmetrical triangle and break out, to elongate and lengthen the time it's taking for this right shoulder to form, which could eventually invalidate the head and shoulder pattern. So that $36,500 level is going to be critical to watch, because if we start to close hourly candles above that level, then we could start creeping up towards that weekly open sitting around 38,000, and from there, if we start to test this long-standing resistance level, there's a high chance we could start to break out to the previous all-time high around 43,000, towards this $42,730 level, or even see new all-time highs. But more importantly, what's happening right now is altcoins are seeing a massive influx of capital. When we look at others' dominance, you can see we're actually forming a very nice pattern here. If we pull up this chart just on the daily chart, and remember, we're looking at what's going to happen to altcoin dominance in the next 2 weeks if we start to test these weekly moving averages. You can see we're forming a higher high in price action here, which is very positive for altcoin dominance. And if we look at this weekly chart, we are starting to come up towards this 100 period moving average, which is just below the 200 period moving average, and that was the start to the previous altcoin season. You can see it took a couple weeks to retest that until we broke above, and then we saw a prolonged altcoin season. We're currently waiting for the confirmation to see if we're able to retest just one of these moving averages, and that to me is going to be a massive confirmation for altcoin season, which means that the altcoins that a lot of institutions are watching are going to start seeing capital flow away from Bitcoin into altcoins, and Bitcoin might have an elongated, prolonged consolidation period. And so realize that this massive altcoin buy pressure here is really showing us that this could definitely be a possible reversal here from this bearish altcoin trend that we actually had to experience as Bitcoin started to climb up. But that's just how this market works. And remember, the cryptocurrency market as a whole has already breached that $1 trillion market cap, which is amazing. And when we look at Ethereum to Bitcoin, we're not necessarily seeing so much action in comparison to some of the other altcoins. And so I do want to talk about some of these other altcoins. When we look at .BTC, we actually sent a trade alert for this yesterday. You can see here it already hit all of its targets, and the reason we sent out this trade alert was because of a very bullish divergence that we saw, and I'll talk about exactly how to identify these. If we look at just the 4 hour chart, what you can see here is on Dot's chart, we formed this lower low in price action while the RSI formed a higher low here, and that is a very bullish pattern. And so as soon as we saw that, you can see our entry at 23,325 was exactly right around this area. We took that entry knowing that we were still below these daily moving averages, and I knew that if we took an entry here and we started to come up and test these moving averages, which was highly probable based on that bullish divergence, that we'd eventually break out, which is exactly what we saw, and that amassed over 20+% profits, actually about 25% profits. I'm sorry, all of my friends are going crazy talking about what's happening with Bitcoin right now, and especially altcoins, because everyone's trying to find out what's the next altcoin to break out. I'm actually looking at Cardano right now. You can see Cardano is looking very bullish and has yet to break out, and there are some other altcoins. Once again, if you're in our Discord, the link is in the description below. That's where you guys are going to get all of the information, but knowing that we have all of this major buy pressure here, I think Cardano has a good chance of possibly coming and breaking out of this pattern. Now, of course, there's other altcoins we'll look at, but if you guys are in the Discord, that's the best place for you guys to get all of the information you need about what's happening to these altcoins. Now, when we look at the dollar value, you can see we're just kind of consolidating here, nothing new, nothing crazy, and so the dollar's strength here is not necessarily affecting much of the market. We're just letting these assets do what they want to do, and now that we're still above the weekly and monthly open, we want to keep watch of what's happening to the dollar, because if we start to see a violent break above 91.015, then there's a high chance we could start to see assets come down in value. So this is very important to watch, but we will keep up to date with that. If you guys are subscribed to our channel, once again, then you guys will always have the most up-to-date information on that. I do want to talk about what's happening here to Bitcoin and go into a little bit more of a micro analysis here. So if we actually look at this daily chart first and foremost, I want to keep you guys informed on the macro just as much as I keep you guys informed on the micro first. Realize that the amount of sell pressure that we saw here from this top here at 42,730 was almost the same amount of sell pressure that we saw back in March when Bitcoin bottomed out. The difference is we saw that amount of sell pressure with Bitcoin bottoming out versus this time we saw that amount of sell pressure with Bitcoin topping out. And so this very well could be a short-term top. We might start consolidating from the period that we just came down towards, which was like right around that $30,000 level. We might consolidate between that $30,000 level up to that $42,000 level for some time. So understand that the market might not be as bullish as it has been in the next couple weeks, but that doesn't mean the macro is still not bullish. I think there's a lot of bullish fundamentals and technicals that can still come into play over the next few months, but maybe the next 1 to 2 weeks we might start to see a little bit of consolidation period, allowing for some of these altcoins to increase in value. But realize that that sell volume was quite significant, and the difference here was when we bottomed out, we saw major sell volume, but then we saw even bigger buy volume, and this time, the next day, we did not see more buy volume. We only saw more sell volume, and so definitely based on the market structure of this being at the top and this being at the bottom, we could say that this sell volume is very, very indicative of a potential temporary top for the short term. However, we may have already seen the worst of this consolidation to that $30,000 level, because if we start to come down to the micro, what you can see here is we saw a massive push down here, but that major support level here that has dated back since we broke the previous all-time high continued to hold us, and that to me is very positive news here. So if we start to come down now, let's talk about the potential downside targets, because I think that's important to cover here. If we start to get rejected here at the $36,500 level, what we want to start watching is whether or not we're going to start closing hourly candles below this level. And if we continue to close hourly candles below this level and we see some weakness, then there's a high chance we may eventually come down. And then, of course, if we start to break this major support level on this channel, then at that point, which is it's right around that $32,000 level, if we start to come down, we may start to come test this monthly open at 28,900. But if we come down to that scenario, I think it's highly probable for us to even come down to possibly fill this previous CME gap at 23,795 and then even come down to test the previous all-time high at 20,000. But I think that's very premature right now. I think this consolidation zone in this channel is going to hold for some time, and so this is really critical for us to watch over the next few days to see how this channel likes to react, what price action is going to do. If we come up above 36,500, once again, that weekly open is going to be critical. And if we were to take a long trade here, what I would look for is a close above 36,500, and you can still set up a very small stop loss here, about 2%, and just to that weekly open, you have a 5% upside on 3x, that's 15%, and that could potentially turn into up to 16% of an upside. And so I think 36,500 is a good level to possibly start a long position. Really, the confirmation is going to be a break of this channel high and that weekly open sitting around that $38,000 levels I talked about yesterday. And if we were to come down and start to see weakness, which so far we have yet to see that, but we are in low volume, so always keep that in mind. I think just breaking this channel, that's where you can start setting up that 2% stop loss and have that potential for that 11%, or actually it's about 15% now. Yesterday it was 11% because price action was a little bit, further back here, but now it's about 15% on a short trade if we break this channel, which is right at that daily open right now, which is eventually going to reset. So that's what I'm watching with Bitcoin. A lot has happened in the last 24 hours, especially when it comes to altcoins. Congratulations to those taking our altcoin trades. We did very well with some of these altcoins. And of course, we even got a Yearn.finance trade in, and that also hit all targets. So congratulations to those that took that trade. And other than that, I hope you guys learned something from this video. I will update you guys tomorrow. As always, remember to like this video if you appreciate this content, and subscribe to our channel if you've yet to do so. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning into the Snipers channel. Snipers out.